of course. Okay. I'm going to see if anybody else. Okay. We'll go ahead and we'll start this. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start introducing Cara, and then we will get started. Okay. So Cara's latest book is Girl on Fire, which I have right here. It is amazing. I know a lot of you have purchased it. When you read it, you're not going to be able to put it down because it is that good. It is so damn good. I found Cara. I don't even know where I found her, but I found her and I've fallen in love with her, and I've read every single one of her books because she's my favorite. And I just love following her on social media. So she started a blog, and then she just started putting all these amazing things out to women, and the response was just amazing. So she left her corporate job and just like thrived with this blog, and now she is just kicking ass and helping all these women just empower themselves, and just amazing, amazing, amazing things. And I just love her. She also does life coaching, and she's just the best. And I'm so excited that she's here to speak to us, and it's just the best ever. Can you tell how excited I am? I'm so excited. Like my whole body's like, oh, I'm so excited that she's here. So yeah. So Cara, I don't know if you want to say anything or if you want to go ahead and like get into the Q&A. It's totally up to you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me, and thank you everybody for joining. I'm so excited to be here. I love like any opportunity that I have to connect with women, and you know, I feel like especially now we're all home and everybody's in quarantine, and it can feel kind of isolating. So I think having calls like this is so important, you know, just to kind of show up and connect and talk and hopefully inspire each other. So I'm excited to be here, and thank you again for inviting me. And I'm having a glass of wine. I've worked my ass off today, so I've made this into a virtual happy hour. If anyone wants to join me, feel free. It's been one of those days. Oh wait, I think you went on mute.
Yes. Okay, there we go. Yes. So did you know, yes, we have a couple of our gals that have it. I love it. Did you want me to go right into the Q&A? Because when I spoke to Jennifer, we did send you a list, and I'm happy to do that, or however, whatever works.
Yeah, you can ask me questions and we can just have a conversation. And if you guys want to jump on and like talk to me, I love doing like interactive chats. So if you want to open up the line, once we kind of talk about some stuff, that works.
Okay, cool. I will go ahead and I'll ask her the couple questions that we've all kind of collaborated. And then if anybody has anything else, yeah, please speak up. This is awesome. This is amazing. Pick her brain because she is wonderful. Like, I just love it. Did I freeze?
I think you froze for a second. I hear you, but I don't see you. Seem frozen.
Her internet goes in and out sometimes, so she asked if I would take over if that ever happened. So one of the questions that we had was, when having rough days, what do you do to combat mental blocks?
You know, I think we all have rough days. I think it's totally normal. And I have learned, like, one of the biggest things is just to kind of like let yourself feel the feelings that you're feeling, right? Like just allow yourself to just be in a funk for a little while, not to stay there, not to like, you know, not to let that go on for a week or a couple of days, but not every day is going to be super high vibe and perfect. As you know, we could read as many affirmations as we want, as many books as we want, listen to as many podcasts, but there are just certain days that like you're in a funk. So I allow myself to feel what I'm feeling. I have like a couple of go-to things that I'll do to pull me out of it, like go work out or, you know, call a friend. Like I think especially now more than ever, we need to connect with people. So really like calling up a girlfriend or calling my mom or something helps. But if none of that is working, I just let myself go with it. And I just try to get a good night's sleep. And then the next day I just wake up and start over again. I think we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves, especially those of us that are into personal development. We feel like we have to be perfect all the time. We have to be on all the time. We have to be super productive, but that's just not, it's not real life. And it's also not healthy. So I flow with it. And then I feel the feelings and I move on.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. What do you do when you are scared to try something new?
Oh God. Well, I'm always trying something new. So I feel like I'm a professional at like starting things, but it didn't always come easily to me. I mean, I think, you know, whenever somebody is starting a new venture, a new business, a new project, a new personal goal, it's scary if you focus on everything that can go wrong. But I think shifting into what could go right and really focusing your mental energy on the outcome that you desire So I'll give you guys a totally like hands-on example. I used to have a little storefront when I lived in Brooklyn. I don't know if anybody here has followed me for some time and might know that. I had a little store. It wasn't like a retail store. It was kind of like a creative space. And it was totally brand new to me. I had never rented commercial real estate before. I just wanted like a space outside my apartment to work from. And, it went well and I liked it. I had a great time there. I didn't really have the full vision kind of fleshed out, but now I live in Manhattan. So I'm in New York, but I'm in Manhattan, which is a whole other ballgame, right? Super expensive rents, as you can imagine, competitive retail. And I have my vintage jewelry line, and I've just sort of been like conceptualizing this like new store. And we're in the middle of a global pandemic. The economy is collapsing around us, and everyone is like, are you insane? Like, why do you want a store now? Like, why would you go and do this? So I'm hearing a lot of voices in my head, because my dream is really to have a store where I live in the East Village. And I'm hearing a lot of people around me and the voices in my head saying, you're crazy, this is not the right time. But I'm focusing on the opportunity, right? I'm looking around and I'm like, this is a time like to strike. This is like, the rents are dropping. I can negotiate. I can get what I want. I can make it happen. People are craving connection, even if it's socially distanced connection, right? So I think it's just about really shifting your mindset into being what I call like best case scenario girl. I think a lot of times we can kind of default to like worst case scenario mode. What if this doesn't happen? What if this doesn't work out? What if I don't make money? What if I fail, right? I love to ask my clients, my girls, anyone, my friends, like, what if it does work? What if everything that you want actually happens? So it's just making that little mindset shift and kind of like putting blinders on and being really cautious around who you share your dreams with. Like, try to have a circle of friends and people that have your back. Like, I know you guys have each other and you do these calls, which is awesome, and be cautious of like oversharing things. I think sometimes when we have dreams, like we think we can kind of like depend on the people in our lives that we're close to, maybe for a long time, whether that's a best friend you have or a family member. But I think it's important to know that everyone is going to approach your dream with their own mindset, their own limiting beliefs around what they think is possible for themselves or in life. So, sometimes you have to keep things close to your heart and just move forward and like kind of just be in your own world for a little while and put those blinders on and make it happen.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, because I know that a lot of us have a hard time, especially now with the pandemic. It's hard to put one foot in front of the other.
It is, but if you have a mission and you have a goal and you are really connecting with like your reason for it, it becomes easier. And like I said, I think there's like a lot of opportunity right now in this whole situation. I think like, especially for what you guys are doing, people are home, people want to feel better, so helping people feel better is like one of the best things you can do.
Definitely. So when did you have a mind shift change? Before you wrote your first book to now? Like when did you have your mind shift change?
Oh gosh, I've had so many. I think it's like there are so many different experiences and challenges in life that give you an opportunity to shift your mindset. But I'll tell you, like, one of the biggest things for me, and this has to do with like rejection and hearing no, which I know probably happens a lot in your business, like, right? Like hearing people say, no, I'm not interested. Like that's like a common thread with a lot of us. And I went through that when I was writing my first book. It was 12 years ago, I started my blog and I decided that I wanted to publish a book. And at the time, the self-publishing industry was very different than what it is now. Like Amazon had just created this platform for authors and, it was still very much like the traditional model, like you had to be chosen by a publisher. And I wrote about this in Girl on Fire. I put my book out there, I got a literary agent, and I got rejected by 19 different publishers. So like this was like, imagine like my dream of all dreams, like all I wanted to do from the time I was a little girl was be an author. And like I got rejected not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 19 times. I didn't even know there were 19 publishers like out there. So that was a real moment for me when I had to shift and I had to start thinking about other alternatives and thinking about, staying focused on my goal, but maybe finding a different way to make that goal a reality. And that's when I started researching self-publishing. And there's, I share this with everybody, there's a Seth Godin blog called Pick Yourself. So if you Google it, it's called Reject the Tyranny of Being Picked and Pick Yourself. it was honestly like the most life-changing thing that I think I ever read. It was the timing, it was the content. It's the shortest little, like maybe, I don't know how many words. It's really short. It's a quick read. It took me like a minute to read the whole blog post. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. And that's when I decided to self-publish my first book. And that changed the course of my life, right? Like here I was, like this no-name author, like, you know, my friends were like buying my book, maybe a couple of blog readers I have. Instagram didn't exist at the time, you know, and I was putting myself out there. And then by the time that I got to Girl Code, I had been used to hearing no so much that I was just choosing myself. I was self-publishing, and that book just blew up and took off and really put me on the map. And then I wound up getting a book deal through that. So, you know, shifting the mindset into just knowing that like no one's going to get in the way of what I want. Like it's got to happen. There is, you know, a way to make things happen no matter what. It might not look the way you thought it was going to look, but just staying open. I think that was the first time that I really, really had to change. I really had to start thinking differently. I see in the chat box, Christy says, what was the name of the blog post? It's called Pick Yourself, Seth Godin. I'll type it in here so you guys can see it. Okay. Just Google that and you'll be able to find it. It's so good. And it's like, I don't know if you guys remember this, but do you remember that song Friday by like Rebecca something? I forgot her name. It came out like in, I don't know, maybe like 2011 or 2012. And it was like this song that came out on YouTube and it like went viral. And this girl wound up becoming like a millionaire because of this like one song she wrote that just went viral. She had no publisher. So, you know, he talks a lot about like kind of ditching the mainstream. Oh, thank you for putting the link in. He talks a lot about ditching the gatekeepers in the mainstream. And I think we're all moving into this space now, especially with the way that like, you know, this whole COVID thing has shifted our lives. Like traditional business is changing and it's changing rapidly. And I think the whole direct to consumer model is becoming more and more important now than ever. We don't need middlemen. We don't need big stores. We don't need big retail. We don't need big companies and standing in our way. So I don't know. I just think that there's, I'm going on a tangent here, but I just think that there's so much opportunity in this moment right now to really build something for yourself. You know, so many people have gotten laid off from their jobs and rejected from their corporate careers, or things have shifted, whatever they're going through, whatever job they had before looks totally different. So being in business for yourself and being an entrepreneur, like to me, there has never been a more powerful time to do it than now.
Okay, I think my freaking internet's finally gonna freaking okay. Okay.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Lindsay, for taking over. Okay, so next question. Now that you know what you know, would you go back and do anything different?
No, I would just calm myself down a little bit more and just chill out. Like trust a little bit more. You know, I think when you're first starting, whatever your journey is, like you're starting out and you feel like you've got to get it right. It's got to be perfect. It's got to look a certain way. It's got to go in the way you imagine it going. But I think I would just go back and tell myself, like, just like let the universe do its magic. Just keep showing up, keep working hard. If you show up and you work really hard, good things will happen. You will stay open to whatever, you know, the world has in store for you. I never knew my path was going to look the way that it did, but I was just so focused on being an author and writing and sharing my work and connecting with women that I just allowed, you know, for the space for it to take shape the way that it did. But I don't regret anything. I wouldn't change anything at all.
I love that. I love that so much, because I just recently have become like a huge believer in the universe because I just think it's amazing. Okay. What drives you to keep going every single day, to show up every single day?
Honestly, like my readers, my audience, like the girls who read my books and send me messages. Like I wake up every morning and I swear to you, it feels like Christmas. Like I open my DMs and I get the most beautiful, heartfelt messages from the girls who read my books. And it just keeps, like, it literally keeps me going. It gives me motivation. Like I remember when I started my blog 12 years ago, I literally said to my friend, if I could just help one woman, if I could just help one person, I would feel like I was here for a reason. And now I've helped, like, it sounds crazy to say it, but like millions, you know, like my podcast just hit 7 million listeners. It's just wild. So that is what keeps me going. It's not like these like little like external goals. It's not like getting a press hit. It's not like being on a bestseller list. It's the human connection of hearing someone say, you changed my life.
I love that. That's so true. I'm the same way. If I can change one life, then I've done my job.
Yeah, and all you have to do is show up authentically. Like it doesn't, you know, you don't have to be perfect to do that. I'm certainly not perfect. I'm so far from it. But if you just show up as yourself, with like a pure heart, and you're genuine in what it is that you're sharing and honest, like people connect with that.
Yes, I love that. I love that. I love that. Do you have a morning and or nighttime routine?
Yeah, so the morning is really important to me. The night is too, but the morning's really important to me. Sorry, I have a barky little 13-year-old bratty dog here. The morning's important to me. I love to wake up. The first thing that I do is like light a candle. I set my intention. Shh, be quiet. I set my intention. I think about how I want the day to go. I think about how I want to feel that day. I'll ask myself questions like, what's inspiring me? What's energizing me today? What do I need more of in my life? Who do I need more of in my life? And what do I need less of? Like, what didn't work for me yesterday? Quiet. You know, what didn't work? What wasn't helping me? What wasn't serving me? Hold on, I'm going to just give him a treat so we don't get interrupted. Here. Okay, sorry.
No, I love it. It's real life.
It's so bad. It's like, seriously, it's like worse than a child. I think I don't have kids, but I think it's worse because it's just this incessant barking. He doesn't understand the word no. It's like,
I love it.
oh, you can't punish him. Anyway, yeah, so yeah. Did that answer your question? I got
Yes,
totally
and then did you do any nighttime? I don't know if I heard that. Do you have like
so in the evening, like it's really easy for me to just work until I like drop. Like I love what I do. So I'm constantly on email, I'm checking DMs, I'm on Instagram, I'm creating content, I'm coming up with ideas. So what I try to do at night is shut down the computer. Like I have like a huge desktop computer and I work from my phone as well. But if I shut down the computer, to me, that kind of signals that the day is kind of like wrapping up. So I tend to do that around like 6 or 7. I'll make dinner. I'll either pour a glass of wine or a cup of tea or something that like is like a ritual for me that kind of signals the day's ending. And then I'll like move into like a different section of my house and I'll really try to stay off the phone if I can. Like really, like I'll go on for like fun, but I really try not to like work. And I love to do a celebration list. That's one of my rituals that I think has really changed things. You know, in the morning we create to-do lists and it's like a mile long and it's all these things we have to get done. But I started doing this thing at night and I just named it a celebration list. I don't know if anyone else does anything like this, but I make a list of everything I accomplished. And it could be whatever was on my to-do list that I got done that I crossed off, or other things like I worked out or I did the laundry, or you know, I dealt with a bratty dog all day and survived, you know, like whatever it is. It just helps me kind of put things in perspective. And I think we don't give ourselves enough credit, especially as women, especially as busy women who are caring for other people. And, you know, a lot of you guys are probably like balancing 2 jobs. I know, like I did that for a long time too, like side hustling. We really don't give ourselves enough credit for, you know, everything that we get done. So the celebration list just kind of helps me like end the day on a really positive note. So I can wake up in the morning and feel empowered, as opposed to like, oh God, there's this whole list of things that I never got done.
That's amazing. I love that. I need to start implementing that because I don't think I do that. So with 3
Even
kids that
in your head, you know, like even if it's just, if you don't have a couple minutes just before you go to sleep, as you lay down, just be like, wow, I actually got a lot done, and kind of like run through it and just give yourself a little credit. I love taking bubble baths too at night if I can, if I have time. I'm a huge bubble bath girl. I love like aromatherapy. So I have like lavender sprays that I'll spray all around my apartment, lower the lights. I actually just got pink light bulbs on Amazon. They're like a game changer. I know not everyone can do this. Like I'm not living with a man at the moment, so I can get away with pink lights in my home. Although I think that whoever I wind up living with in my future is going to have to like pink light bulbs, but like I just set the tone. Like I love to set a vibe. I love to have a home that like inspires me. And no matter what your situation looks like, if you have kids, if you're married, if you're living with roommates, like even just something like lighting a candle and creating like a little space for yourself in the evening to kind of reflect, I think just makes a big difference.
I love that. I love that so much. Okay, next question. What do you do to shut that inner mean girl up?
Oh man, you know, I think just like talking to myself like I would talk to someone that I love and care about, like my best friend, my cousin, my mom, like another woman in my life that I really love. I think we can tend to be hard on ourselves and our own worst critics, but I try to just kind of tell myself like, whatever I would tell someone I care about. So if the voice is coming up in my head saying you're not doing enough today, you know, you didn't get this done, you're all over the place, you're scattered, whatever, you know, she's saying to me, I just kind of like reframe it. And I'm like, you know, you're doing enough, like forgive yourself, move on. If I've learned one thing in life, it's that like change and, you know, things, productivity, success never comes from beating yourself up. It's never going to come from, you know, whether that's your own personal weight loss, you know, wellness journey, whatever it looks like, whether it's your business, like it never comes from a place of self-hatred, self-loathing, self-deprecation. It always comes from a place of empowering yourself. So just try to love myself a little bit more in those moments and really catch it. I think if anything, if just the first step is really just becoming aware and just being like, oh, she's here. Here she is. This, you know, this mean girl is like showing up again. Like, what am I going to do this time to handle this differently?
I love that. I love that so much. Okay, perfect. What can somebody do to break through a barrier that keeps them from pushing towards their goals per se?
It's a good question. I think it really depends on what the barrier is. You know, so if it's a limiting belief, let's say, I think looking for an opposing truth. You know, so like if your belief might be, oh, I'm never going to make money doing this. My industry's saturated, right? That's a big one. I think that comes up with a lot of my clients. So many people in my industry, what makes me so special? What's going to make me successful? Proving that that's wrong. Looking around at someone else who's doing it, who's just like you and who's killing it. You know, I remember when I first started out and I was in the coaching world, I was looking around and I was like, wow, all of these girls have quit their jobs. They're making a living doing what they love. Like, why can't I do it? You know, like if she, like I wrote about this in Bro Code, like if she can have it, I can have it too. So using people around you as inspiration, I think is a huge one. And making sure that you're always challenging yourself to go to the next level, you know, to up level, not to just get complacent or lazy with like the status quo. It's really easy to, you know, just be okay with what you've got, what you're doing. Not to say you shouldn't celebrate that. We should always be happy and grateful for where we are. But I think that you can be grateful while still pushing for more.
I love that. I love that so much. I think that's the list that I had. So I will go ahead and open it up to everybody and you ladies can chat with Cara. Anybody have anything?
I have a question about your book, Girl on Fire. So one of the things that I had read in there was you talked about going to the vintage market that you absolutely love and that one woman's booth. I actually was so offended myself even reading her response that it broke my heart. And so my question for you is, as you explained it so beautifully, and several of these girls in here are waiting for their book. You might want to, if you'll just explain the scenario. My question is, how do you in turn around and seeing it? Because I noticed that as that scarcity mindset right away, you know, instead of that was the biggest compliment ever. And so I just want to know how you talk to women about that scarcity mindset.
Yeah. So I'll just kind of summarize like what happened for anyone that hasn't read the book yet. So I do a lot of things in my business. I write, you know, I blog, I've got my podcast. My brand is really about empowering women to be confident, to be bold, to be themselves, to love their lives. So I also have a vintage jewelry line that I started almost 2 years ago. I'm wearing earrings from my line. I just love vintage jewelry. Like it just makes me so, so happy. And it's just like a passion project that I have that I'm hoping to grow into something else. So in my spare time, there's not a lot of it, but you know, there was a day that I was walking around the city. This was probably, oh gosh, now like over a year ago. And I went to this flea market. I always love checking out other spaces. You guys know I mentioned earlier, like I really want my own retail space, my store. So I feel really inspired by looking at other people who are doing it. Because again, my attitude is if she can do it, I can do it. And there's enough for all of us, right? So I went to this flea market and I walked into this little vintage boutique setup and it was so gorgeous. Like it literally gave me chills to even think about right now. Like she had this beautiful like oriental rug and she had all of her stuff displayed so gorgeously. It was just like a dream. And I wanted to like take a picture of it. And I told her, I was like, this space is just so beautiful. I was like, you know, I was going to take a picture. And she's like, no. you can't take a photo of my space. And I was like, okay. And I was kind of like taken aback. And I was like, well, do you mind if I just ask you like why? And she was like, well, I don't need people copying me and people taking my ideas. And I said, well, I just really want to show this to my friend. One of my best friends is an interior designer. I'm like, I want to make my own space, and this is really motivating me. And she's like, if your friend wants to see it, she can come and shop here and spend money with me. And I was so just like, my jaw was on the floor when she said this to me. And it just, I'm so not that girl. So for me, it was just like so foreign to even hear somebody like tell me, number one, no, you can't take a picture. It's a public domain. And number two, it wasn't even her store. It was a flea market. So I totally could have taken a photo. And number two, like, just to kind of have that attitude of like, I'm going to steal something from her, right? By taking a photo. I could never recreate her space, and she could never recreate my space. We're different people. So that does come up, and it came up a lot, I think, for me in the beginning when I was starting out. It comes up less now because my circle's different. I'm with different people. But I think in the beginning, especially of our journeys, you know, we're finding ourselves, right? As entrepreneurs, we're figuring out like what it is, you know, we like and who we want to spend our time with and what we want to share and who we trust. So I think just always kind of coming from a place, like I always ask myself, like, what would the best version of me do here? Right? So like the best version of me, rather than like the Brooklyn Cara, I'm from Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Italian girl wants to like be like, you know, curse her out and like, you know, that's the low vibration version of me. But the evolved best version of me kind of looked at her and was like, okay, she's not there yet. She's just not there yet. Let me bless her, wish her well, send her all the good vibes and move on and hope that she does get there. Maybe one day she'll pick up Girl Code or Girl on Fire and read the story, right? So I think it's just important to realize that not everyone is where we are on our journeys, and it's okay. And to just kind of approach them from a loving standpoint, send them love, hope that they, you know, have a different attitude at some point, and just continue to set a good example. Like I've had friends, like really close friends to me, who were like that, you know, at some point in their lives, or maybe were like a little bit more bitter about things or more negative. And I know for a fact I've had a positive impact on them because I could see it. And it's taken years of me just continuing to show up as my best self and not dim my light and be optimistic. Like my friends are like, you're just the eternal optimist, but I can see it in them when they start to turn around and become a little bit more optimistic. So just be the example, right? We need more women who are stepping up and just being a positive example of what it looks like to lift another woman up, or to be, you know, a source of light for another person, or compliment someone. Like one of my favorite things to do is just compliment women genuinely, not like fake, but like really, truly. If I walk around and I see somebody with like a great pair of shoes, like I'll stop somebody in the street and be like, I love your shoes. And funny story, I did this once. I was literally walking through my neighborhood a couple of weeks ago, and I saw this girl and I was like, I love your outfit. She's like, oh my God, you're the champagne diet. I'm like, oh my God. I was like, see, I'm like living my brand. It's not fake. It's like, people love that. Like everybody wants to feel good. So just be the light, be the example. And I really, truly think that like little by little, we can turn things around. I think I always say women could run the world. If we could just get out of each other's way in our own way, we could literally rule the world.
I don't want to take anybody's thing. I have lots of questions, but when you, just at the beginning, I feel like I couldn't even dive into the book yet because I spent so much time reading a few times, actually, your Girl on Fire manifesto. And you even state in there, bookmark it because you're going to come back to it over and over. And so I guess my question is, you know, do you like, when you wrote this, were you placing all these different things where we see ourselves as women in all of these things, some of them, or just things that we aspire to be? Because I can pick several that are strong, but some I want to, but I know I'm not there yet. Is that kind of like how you speak to women about this? And as we go through, I mean, it always makes me excited to learn more. I love to learn. So I'm not really worried about the attributes I don't have yet, because we can learn them. We can get them, right? But I just feel like they're so powerful. And then as you break them down, I didn't expect your book to actually have me more emotional. I I mean, there's those fire. I was waiting for it, by the way, for me to be this fire. And there are those parts, but there's so much that personally resonates with me in most every page. And just to put it out there, I used to think it was a bad thing to mark up a book, but I actually am the complete opposite now. So it looks like a coloring book.
I love it.
Because
I do the same thing.
Because everything worth reading, you need one of these. And you guys are gonna need this for her book. And I'm actually a Cara virgin, so I didn't know so much about you. And it was Milena that has brought you into my life. And when I started, which I'm very grateful for, but this is my very first book, so my first experience with your writing, and I am in love with how it is. But would you mind talking a little bit more about the manifesto?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's so beautiful. I appreciate everything you just said. Yeah, so the manifesto was really just like a collection of my thoughts on like life.
Did we lose her?
Okay, I'm here. Can you hear me? The manifesto was really just like a collection of kind of everything that I wanted to say in the book, right? So like each piece of the manifesto connects to like a different chapter. And to your point, you know, I think that being powerful really is about being vulnerable. And sometimes we think that being powerful is just about having the masculine energy and the hustler attitude and go, go, go and being on the defense. But I have found in my life that when I'm the most powerful, it's when I'm really the most vulnerable and I'm the most open and I'm in my feminine energy and I'm really like following my intuition and really being like self-aware. So a lot of what I wrote in the book, especially in the beginning with that manifesto, is just about that. It's like really just connecting to who I am and what I've learned through the years and like the really most important lessons that I've learned going through my journey so far. I mean, I definitely don't know everything, but I've learned a lot along the way. And it's funny because I wrote this book, just so you guys know, I wrote it, so I self-published, like that's like a big part of my journey. I got rejected all of those times. I self-published my first book in 2012, and then I self-published a few more. And then I self-published a book called Girl Code. I don't know if anyone's read it, but like that was the book that really blew up. It for whatever reason, it kind of went crazy. And I was approached by a publisher. So like finally, like my big dream became a reality, right? And I got this double book deal. They picked up Girl Code. They published another book called Like She Owns the Place. Girl Code has now been translated in like almost 10 languages. And you would think that I'd be so happy. You would think that I'd be on cloud nine, that all of these things came true for me, but I was really unhappy. And it was a big wake up call for me because I realized that I was putting my success in the hands of someone else. I was like, if the publisher picks me up, then I'm successful. But I felt more depressed than ever. I missed being an independent author. I missed doing things on my own. So Girl on Fire is really a lot about that. It's about that experience and realizing that success comes from within. You know, and everything that I talk about in the manifesto specifically is about that. It's like not waiting for somebody to validate you, not waiting for someone to give you permission to do something. And I think, especially for the business that you guys are in, you can't wait for someone to pick you. You know, you've got to choose yourself in every single moment, every single time you speak to someone, every single time you post something. It's all about choosing you and knowing that you're good enough and knowing that you have something really important to share. There's room for all of us at the table. You know, I think sometimes we feel like, oh, like I said earlier, industry is overcrowded, or, you know, what do I have to share? What's so important about my story? But everyone's story is important. Everybody's going to connect with you for a different reason. Does that answer the question? Cool.
I have a question, and this is totally foreign. Like, it feels weird kind of putting it out in the universe, but for the last few years, I have really thought about writing a book. And I grew up like never like even having that in the background of my mind, but I've thought about writing a book the last few years, but had absolutely no idea what to write on. But listening to your book, Like She Owns the Place, like I had this total aha moment, and I know what I want to write about now. So from somebody who has written multiple books, self-published, what would be your advice of kind of where to start?
I think knowing what you want to write about is the most important thing, right? Like knowing what the theme of the book is, knowing who your audience is. So who is the woman that is going to read this book? Like, who is this going to really resonate with? Who am I writing this for? And then just starting to write an outline. Like, that's like always my first step. Like, I come up with a theme. I don't always have the title. I usually do. It's funny because Girl on Fire, the title came at the last second. Like, I had all these other titles in mind and they were all like taken and people had done it before. And I was like, oh God, and it just came to me. But if you have a title in mind, writing that down, writing an outline is really just different themes for different chapters. And one of the tricks that I use for writing, and this will make it maybe seem a little bit more doable for you, is I imagine each chapter as just being like a blog post or like an extended Instagram post. So I'm sure you're posting on Facebook and Instagram, and all of those, you're pouring your heart into those captions and your storytelling, right? So think about how you can take those little stories and put them into a book and just expand on them. And I think that's like really the first step when it comes to the writing process, just thinking like, okay, what do I want people to walk away from this book learning? What do I want them to know? And how can I best tell this story? And I think when it comes to like personal development, I'm assuming that's kind of what you want to write, right? Like a personal development book. I think it's a combination of sharing your own journey, but then also always giving a lesson and a takeaway within each chapter of the book. You know, like giving people something to think about, giving them something to kind of go on, like letting them, rather than like telling them what to do, letting them get there on their own. And I think to me, that's like really what coaching is. It's empowering someone to get to the place they want to be, you know, and giving them the confidence to do that, right? Not saying this is what you should do with your life. Here's how to act, here's how to be, but like, here's what I went through. Here's what I took away from this. You know, here's some food for thought. Like take this and kind of apply it to your own life. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah. I have a couple of podcasts on self-publishing. My podcast is called Style Your Mind. And if you look it up, like you can probably like, it's definitely past episodes, kind of like in the archives, but I definitely have some content on there about self-publishing if you're interested.
Yes, I will definitely add that to my list.
Cool.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Come on, we've got it.
I have one more. I have another question. Sorry, another part of your book.
Sorry.
Don't be sorry.
But okay, so let's see. I can just say page 23 because I'm at it. But
okay, hold on, I have
one of the things that I read that stopped me right there. So as you know, we're coaches, and I've been coaching for 2 years. And I think back to when I first started, and there's so much about it that's cringeworthy. And you had a line in there that you said, Reid Hoffman said, if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late.
Yes.
And that just struck a chord, because I have honestly felt like in the back, in my subconscious, I've kind of carried it as kind of like this, like a little bit of this shame boat of certain things, where the best case scenario means like, that's okay, I learned from it, I grew, but it's still there like a skeleton. And this stopped me and kind of made me look at it in the face just reading your book. And I would love for you to talk and expand on that a little bit more, because I'm actually, most everybody that I coach with are way younger than me. I'm older. And so
funny side note.
I'm 41 on Monday.
Look amazing. I'm 42, so welcome to the 40s. I'm totally proud of it. You look awesome.
Well, thank you. I have an almost 22-year-old. She's my oldest. So
sisters, I'm sure.
But the thing is I guess my question is if you can, like I said, expand on that, because I think that's scary for all of us, when especially new coaches and in our jobs, stepping out, you feel embarrassed, and it's that thought of embarrassing yourself. And yes, it's all the not doing it right. And then you want to reel it back in and take it back, but we're on social media, it all goes. So what's your advice on that?
Okay, so I think the biggest thing to know is that nobody really knows what they're doing. Okay? No one really knows what they're doing. Like, everyone is figuring it out. Even the people that you look up to and admire, they're still figuring it out. Like, I've made so many mistakes and I've had so many moments of like cringe in my career. But if I didn't have those moments, I wouldn't be where I am now. And I know that I'm going to look back in 10 years and look at this and be like, oh God, cringing, like not this call, but like whatever I'm doing, right? Like, we're all really just kind of figuring out what is going on. Like, I'll never forget, there was one time that I blogged, and this was like, God, like 10 years ago. And I wrote something and I used a phrase like incorrectly. I don't remember. I think I said something like, I don't know, like find someone to like fan the flames, but I used it wrong. I used it incorrectly. Like, cause when you think of someone to fan the flames, it's like to make it bigger, right? Like fan your flames. But I used it as like someone to like put out your, like, I don't know, whatever. It was just wrong. And some man who I didn't know, because I was like on Twitter at the time, again, there was no Instagram. Some guy on Twitter was like, you're using the incorrect, like, you know, term or whatever, what you call yourself a writer. And I remember I was like, oh my God, like my career is over. People think I'm stupid. And I was so like bummed. And I was like, wow, like I was so mortified. Little did I know, 10 years later on Instagram, people would be like, you know, taking me down on a daily basis, basically. But like, it is what it is, right? There's like trolls online and people are negative and someone's always going to have something to say. But I think it's a learning experience, right? It's a learning process. Like you just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And if you don't have those moments, like if I look at my first book and compare that to Girl on Fire, they're two different books. But I had to write that first book to get to where I am now. So, you know, like, so you can't just stay in a bubble and like expect yourself to be able to grow and evolve. Like you've got to like go into it. You literally got to walk into the fire and like get burned a couple of times and like, you know, figure it out. So there's just no way around it. There's no shortcut to growth. I'll put it that way.
Jen's just going to ask the questions. The other thing too, and something that I myself have also experienced, and I am now watching some coaches go through it, as you talked about too, was the whole imposter syndrome. And going in, if you can talk about what that is, because some people I don't think know what it is. It's not new to me, because I probably learned about this about 18 months ago, and I now can see it and recognize it. So I think it's something that needs to be talked about.
Yeah. So imposter syndrome is really feeling like you're not qualified to do what you're doing. It's the feeling of like, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't have enough qualifications. People are not going to take me seriously. And the interesting thing about imposter syndrome is that research shows that it's most prevalent among successful women. So it's not like, you know, the average person probably doesn't feel that way because they're not like successful enough and intelligent enough to think that way. So it's a good problem to have, so to speak, right? But one of the things that my friend and former client always says, and I think this is so brilliant, if you feel like an imposter, if you're like, okay, who am I to do this, right? Who am I to be a coach? Who am I to put myself out there? Who am I to share my journey, talk about my story? Think about someone like who really doesn't know you, who has no experience, right? Like, so if you're, you know, talking about like a health journey, think about somebody who's never been on a health journey before, someone who knows nothing about you and your life and your story and your business, showing up and trying to do what you do. That's an imposter, right? That's truly an imposter. That's like the definition of it. They don't know what they're talking about. You know what you're doing. Your heart has led you to a certain place for a reason. I don't believe that we have visions and dreams like for nothing. Like, I really believe that we're all kind of gifted a very specific vision for a reason. And I think that it's our responsibility to bring that to fruition. So when you feel like an imposter, I think it's comforting to know that pretty much everyone does, especially successful people. And the quickest way to kind of remedy that is just to go through it and just do the thing that you want to do. You know, I couldn't even call myself an author for years. It took me a long time to even be able to say I'm an author. Like, even after my book deal, I felt awkward saying it. Like, I was like, oh, who am I? Like, I dropped out of college, you know, like I left college to go work. I got a job and I was interning and they hired me and I was like, see ya, school. I don't want to do this anymore. And school wasn't for me. I was a hard worker, but I learned things. I went to coaching school. I educated myself in other ways. So I think it's just important to trust your talents and trust your gut and know that you're being led to whatever it is that you're doing for a reason, for a bigger purpose.
Any other questions? I could just listen to you talk all day. I'm not gonna lie. Anybody else? Because now's the time. Anything. It can be anything, you guys. I know a lot of you are waiting on your books, which is totally fine. So ask her just like anything. I've read all her books. I love her. I think I found you through Alana. I think she posted a picture with you.
Oh,
and so when I went and stalked you, that's how I found you. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I just read all your books after that.
Oh my God, I just restarted To Be Mindset on Monday. I love that program. I love it. I lost 30 pounds with that.
Damn, that's amazing. Yay.
I did. I gained some of it back this year because who has not gained any weight this year? Please, if you haven't gained weight, I am supremely jealous of you. This has been a challenging time, but I'm back on it. I've lost 3 pounds since Monday, so it works.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. And yes, I've gained weight too. Thank
She's
you, COVID. Thank you, quarantine.
Oh my God, the quarantine 15, like it's real. It's a real thing. I don't even like cookies, but I was like eating cookies every night. Like what? It's just 2020 is not. It's not a joke.
No, it's true. Anybody else? Any ladies? Anybody?
Kristen, yes, you're lucky. I see your comment. You're very lucky. I'm very jealous.
Oh, Stacey, you have a question? I saw you unmuted yourself. Go, girlfriend.
What keeps you motivated every day? What keeps you going?
You know, thinking about how fortunate I am that I get to do what I do, really being in a space of gratitude, thinking of my life 10 years ago, you know, when I had to show up to a job that I hated, realizing that it's a privilege to get to do what I love. It's a privilege to have a passion. You know how many women come to me for coaching who are like, I don't know what I like. I have no idea what I'm passionate about. That to me is so sad, right? So I think just reminding myself that it is truly a privilege to know what I'm meant to do in this world and to be happy doing what I do. And like, it's on me to make it happen. It's just on me to show up every single day. And, you know, not everybody has that opportunity.
Love it. All right. Anybody else? Don't be shy. Like I was so nervous, but now
I just have to say one thing. Cara, your smile lights up the whole world. Like every time you smile when you're talking, I'm like, oh, I could just watch her all day. Like listen to you and watch you. So thank you. Thank you for being a light. You are fabulous.
Oh my God, that's like the best compliment. Thank you so much. It's so sweet.
I guess we kind of already talked about at the beginning a little bit. I don't know, sorry, am I interrupting someone? Just when you are, I feel like I try and find motivation, but I feel like I want to be at my 5-year mark and I'm still back here at my 1 year, you know, like, so how do you know what to focus on? Like, what's your best advice for that? Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm all over the place.
No, that's such a great question. So I will tell you, like, I was totally addicted to like milestones for a while. Like I was like, okay, I have to get a book deal. I have to be in the New York Times. I have to do this, I have to do that. And I think when I started accomplishing those things, I realized like I felt very empty. And I realized, like, perfect example of what I said before about getting the book deal, I was so depressed, you know, and I realized like I was so much happier in the hustle in the beginning. Like I realized that like the beauty of what we do is the journey. And it sounds so cliche and so cheesy, but like really that it's not about the destination. It truly is about everything you're learning along the way. And I think sometimes like I look at some of my girls, my clients, like who are just starting out, and I kind of almost feel like nostalgic. I'm like, wow, it's like, it's so beautiful when you're just beginning something because you're learning. You're like a kid, right? Like you're so curious, like you want to learn everything. You want to soak it in. You're not jaded yet. So enjoy where you are. You know, like honor the season you're in. Whatever you're doing right now is exactly where you're meant to be. Trust that you're meant to be in that place and you're going to get there. You're going to get to your 5-year mark. And chances are you might get there and be like, wow, I remember when I was, you know, in it for a year and I was like, so, you know, I was learning so much and I was soaking it all in. So just try to realize that like it's all happening in divine timing and it's all happening the way that it should. And there are things to learn and things to experience at every point in that journey. And they're all equally important.
I have a weird question. So you are an author. What books do you read to motivate you?
Oh, I love that. So I just started reading the Grace Jones memoir. I don't read personal development. So I know this is going to sound weird because I write it, but I don't read anything in my genre because I don't ever want to pick up somebody else's voice or somebody else's like ideas. So I read other things. I love reading about like badass women. Like I'm reading the Blondie memoir as well. I love music. So I love women in music and powerful women in music. And I read like anything basically that's like related to that. So people's stories, people's biographies, people's memoirs, that really motivates me. The Grace Jones one is amazing. I highly recommend getting it. She's like one of my ultimate like icons. She's, if anybody doesn't know Grace Jones, like she's just like, you know, singer, model. She's like from like, she kind of got her start, I guess, like in the 60s, 70s. And she's just like such a badass and broke so many barriers. And I think, I don't know, reading about someone else's life, like a woman especially that inspires me, I think is just one of like, it's an escape, but at the same time, it's also inspiring and I can take those things and apply them to my life, like whatever I've, you know, read about her. So yeah.
That was a good question. Any other questions?
Jen said, I know who George Michael is. I love George Michael. I have an unhealthy obsession with him.
Alrighty. Anybody else? Yes, no, maybe so.
Cara,
Yes.
talk to these women and myself included about how you set good boundaries when you have naysayers that you are surrounded with, such as family members or, you know, close friends, as you try to get out of that naysayer group and surround yourself with positive people who uplift you. How do you set healthy boundaries to accomplish that?
Such a good question. Boundaries are like they're just like an ongoing thing that I think we all deal with, like depending on who it is in our life that we need to set the boundary with. I'm just like big fan of being honest with people. You know, I used to be the person who like made up excuses or just ignored things, but I'm really straightforward these days, you know? So if I have like, for example, yesterday was super busy. This week for me has been insane. So yesterday was really busy. And I had a friend who just kept texting me and I just flat out said to her, listen, I love you. This is a really crazy day. I'm going to get back to you when I can. And she continued to text me throughout the day and I love her, but I just had to stop responding. You know, so I think just like letting people know what you're available for, what you're not, letting people know also when they're crossing a boundary, you know, so like if somebody is disrespecting a boundary that you set, just saying, hey, you know, we had a conversation about this. You know, it's not cool. It's making me feel uncomfortable. It's making me feel like you're disrespecting this, you know, the boundary that I set for, you know, our relationship. So, for, you know, moving forward, I'm not going to answer you. I'm not going to respond to you. I think that there's a way to be very kind but direct. You know, I think sometimes like we can feel like if we're saying what we need, we can feel mean or, you know, like rude to that person, but it's your right to determine what you want in your life. Like I'll give you guys an example. I live in New York. And it's been like a challenging time, obviously, here in the city with everything with COVID, but now we're in a really good place. But of course, now, you know, things are happening with the economy and there's just, New York is always like the center of attention, right? So I have a friend who used to live here, who moved, and all she does is send me articles. All she did was send me articles about how like the city is never going to be the same and all the stores are closing. It's like gloom and doom with her constantly. So I said to one of my friends, like, she keeps sending me these articles. Like, I don't want to read this. I live here. I love living here. I'm a New Yorker. Like, you know, and my friend was like, you have every right to tell her you don't want to see that. And it like reminded me, I was like, oh shit, like, of course I have every right to say that. So I like reached out to her and I was like, hey, I appreciate where you're coming from. I know that you're like a little bit afraid right now, but like, I can't see this stuff. So like, thanks, but no thanks, like save it for somebody else. And she was like, oh my God, I'm sorry. Are you mad at me? I'm like, no, I'm not mad. Like, just don't send this my way, you know? So like, sometimes we think that we're like gonna cause like a rift in a friendship, or, you know, I don't know, like just, it's just always better to be direct. So, you know, I think sometimes we can get passive aggressive with people, or we just ignore things, but that never serves us. So just practice in small ways. Practice saying no, practice turning something down. I love to say no without an explanation. I think sometimes we feel like we have to give a whole long, like, reason why we're saying no to someone. Like somebody asked me last night to speak, a good friend of mine asked me to speak on her team call for a whole different thing. And I was like, sorry, I can't make it. That was it. I didn't have to tell her why. I didn't have to explain the reason. I just said, I'm sorry, I can't make it. And like, it's just really empowering to just say no to people. Yes, I see Veronica said no is a complete sentence. Amen.
Yeah, in my life, I've learned to use the phrase, I would love to, but I can't. Because most of the time, you really, truly would have loved to speak at that engagement, but it's not fitting your schedule, and that's okay. And I think as women, we feel like we have to be yes women. Like, we have to say yes to everything, or someone's feelings are going to get hurt. And so just saying, no, I would love to, but I can't.
Exactly. Which I think that's a perfect example of being kind but direct.
Perfect. Thank you. I love it.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? I think that's kind of a good note to end on, but anything else? Anything else? Okay. Cara, thank you so much. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it scared me shitless to reach out to you to do this. I'm so glad that you did. Like, so glad. And I know my team is too. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to speak to us, to help us, to, especially during this crazy shit show of a time that is right now.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for asking. I think, like, you set a great example to your team, right? Like, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So I love that you reached out to me, and I love that we were able to make it happen.
Yes. Go follow her if you don't. She's totally worth it. She's always posting bomb quotes, everything. She's just good. I love seeing her stories and her feed every single day. That's one person who I'm like, I will always follow you because it's nothing but good stuff. She's amazing. So, all right. Well, seriously, thank you so much. Thank you. I love you. I don't know that I'll ever meet you, but if I come to New York, I'll find you.
Yes. Thank you guys for tuning in. Great connecting with everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Cara. We'll see ya.
Have a great night. Bye.
You too.